spaghetti.
Ready spaghetti. Welcome to Trust the Journey. I'm Melanie Curtis.
And I'm Jason Maletsky.
Our mission is to live, laugh, love, and learn together with you.
We're here to create conscious connections to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trust. Trusting the entire journey.
Heck yes. Every time I hear that, I'm like, totally. That's what we're doing here.
Totally.
If you want to find us on the internet, everyone, go to trustthejourney.today. That's our website. That's our Instagram handle. If you would like to join us in the Trust the Journey family, where we talk privately with our community and expand the dialogue that happens on the podcast into that space, or just whatever's going on in people's lives or what they need support around, you are welcome to join us there. Just go to our website and donate on Patreon in any amount, and that will get you added to the private Facebook group. But yeah, let's dive in today, and who knows where we'll begin, because today we're talking about overwhelm. It's like, oh God, here we go.
So as we put this topic on the table, I was like, I don't know if I could talk about this. I'm pretty overwhelmed right now.
Exactly. So I was like, let's talk about overwhelm. It'll be like a therapy sesh, most likely.
Yeah.
Every time you just talk about what's going on. And that's something I think that's a great insight to start with. And by the way, I took no notes. I wrote down nothing ahead of this episode. I really came to this space really open and just trusting of what might come up today, which is really always what I do. But, sometimes we'll prepare notes and stuff like that. But the idea that a diffuser of overwhelm can just be to share it, just to speak it out loud, to hear yourself voice what you are feeling, naming it, that can sometimes really help people.
Yeah, I think that's usually my first course of action right now, is that first thing I do when I start to boil over and I've got too much going on and I'm losing track and things are starting to fall off the table, I usually stop and go talk to somebody and say, I'm stressed, I've got too much going on. And just in that action, I'll usually get some simple reflection that's going to help me to take a pause, which is usually what's necessary to regroup, and then figure out what the next action step is to get myself back to a place where I can start being productive again.
Yeah. So interesting, the concept of rest. I mean, it's a concept, but it's a life practice. You know what I mean? But thinking about rest as a concept, I am thinking about this recently because this last week I took 2 full vacation days, which I haven't done
Good for you.
thank you. Haven't done that
Yeah.
in a while. My best friend Shannon visited. We went skiing. We had just beautiful time together. And I really, even though we were skiing, we were doing things, it felt extremely restful to be off of social media, to be off of my technology. I know we've touched on this before, but why I bring it up is because I was going into those days pretty overwhelmed. We have a big demo jump coming up next week, our first of the year. It's a big new partnership for Highlight, our demonstration jump team, the social impact initiative that we're leading. And so that's a big deal. It matters. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of last minute things to take care of. There's a lot of media that I need to be prepared for. I'm getting the mic on these large stages. I want to be ready to voice the mission and message that we want to share. We want to talk about equality. We want to talk about pay equity. We want to talk about representation, all of these things. And so that brings with it a certain pressure. And normally I do a pretty good job of managing my tasks and my to-dos and even big things like this. So it's not like I lose it. I'm definitely not losing it. But after having rested for a couple of days, it is stark, the comparison between how I feel now versus how I felt the days before the 2 days off. And it's not even a big amount, but I am able to access more patience. I'm able to just my energy is just more it's softer. I'm just in a better place. And it's one of those things that I wanna make sure I don't forget about it in a deeper way, if that makes sense, because when I get exhausted, I still try to keep going. And so I feel like what it's calling me to do is take a much deeper look at my rest and when I do and don't do that. You know what I mean? And how that impacts me.
Rest is incredibly powerful. I was having a conversation, I think it was just 1 to 2 days ago, with a good friend here, and we were talking about how it's easy to get wrapped up in all the things. Like, well, there's things I got to get done, you know? And like, yeah, well, oh, I just took a day off. And I'm like, well, what do we do on the day off? Oh, cleaned house all day.
Right.
And like, no, it's not a rest day. It's not a rest day when you're busy actioning things that
Mhm.
you have on your to-do list. If you're actioning things on your to-do list, you're on a work day. If your to-do list is closed and you're just being, and
Mhm.
you're sharing time with friends or being in nature or working on art or just in a creative space, in a flowing space that just has lots of room for change in it, and it doesn't have to have so much structure,
Mhm.
that's rest, right? I always
Mhm.
feel like that structure is kind of what, it's this balance, right, where it's the key to everything. Like, it really really helps to have a solid structure,
Mhm.
but when I put structure into my rest days, then they're not really rest days. They're bookended,
Mhm.
and they need to be more open-ended and more flowing to really have that the value of a rest day,
That's always been the case for me. I realized that earlier on, where if I have a creative and this is also relative to work, but things that help me stay less stressed about making progress on certain creative projects. So rest in the sense of taking days off, completely agreed. Even more restful work or less overwhelming work, I suppose is a better way to say it, is I need large chunks of time. Speaking of rest, oh, big
yeah.
yawn, I love it. Um, it's a thing, it's a thing. So, yeah, I don't know, I'm sort of rambling about it, but what's going on in your world? Do you wanna share? Like, what's overwhelming you right now?
I have a lot of responsibilities right now in a lot of different areas, both in my professional life, of how I choose to engage in my workplace, as well as what I'm choosing in my secondary, or they're not even secondary, and it's parallel paths, right? The other areas. This project is one that takes a good amount of time every week. I have musical endeavors that are very important to me, and what I've seen happening is that they're getting pushed to the side. I'm
Mhm,
not getting the time to work on the things that I'm really passionate about, because I'm reprioritizing and putting other things higher on the priority list and letting them take up my time. And one of the things that's really affecting that entirety is my physical and mental health require a lot of my time now. It's much more time than it used to be.
mhm,
It used to be my mental health and my physical health at the time, the way that I was dealing with them was incorporated into what I did for a living. So when I jumped out of airplanes, my mental health checkbox was getting a dose of adrenaline every day,
yeah.
which made me feel great until it wore off. And
Right.
so my mental health is like dealt with. I went jumping today. I did something I love to do. Did I actually deal with any of my problems? No, I just made them all go away for now. But I feel better right now, right?
Did I deal with any of my problems? No.
No. Big old coping mechanism. Whack. $25. Get me on an airplane.
I
You know.
know. I know.
It's great. And my physical health would get managed in that sense too, where I, as a younger person and being active and outdoors, then that was pretty much all I really needed to do. But as an older person, um, as I really have to put hours every day towards how much activity I'm getting in order to be the version of me that I want to be as I go forward in my life. And that's not the same version that I wanted to be before. I have
Yeah.
a different goal now. So dividing my time up between doing the things I need to do to take care of myself mentally and physically. It includes meditating, and includes self-care, simple grooming,
Mm-hmm.
bathing, feeding myself, food prep, eating, simple kinds of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting out to exercise and stretching.
Mm-hmm.
That's hours every day.
Yeah.
And then now I got to take the rest of the day and divide it up between all the different projects I have on the go. The van that I live in needs constant attention. The motorcycles that I like to ride constantly need to be worked on if I want to keep them running. My
Mm-hmm.
parachutes and gliders need equipment and updating, and then there's a list of projects on the go and all the new endeavors that I'm always wanting to start. I'm looking for property and there's like 100 different things on the
Yeah.
go, and I can't even keep track of them all.
Yeah.
And eventually what happens is I lose track of things and they start falling off the table, or I forget. I'm like, oh, dang, my accountant asked me to do something for my taxes weeks ago, and it's
Right.
still in my inbox. And, you know,
Yeah.
I presented the discussion to a close friend recently, and I was like, man, I'm kind of too much to do, a bit overwhelmed. And they made the comment, delete all, like, highlight everything in the inbox and hit trash, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, but it's not the way that I can actually effectively manage my life and feel good about who I am.
Right.
So
Right.
what I find myself doing instead is, okay, let me take a minute, let me close the computer, let me put away. First of all, what I usually do is tidy up.
Yeah.
Like close a computer, tidy up, take a shower, get a bath, get some exercise, right? Do something that's more about focused on like right now in this moment, what's the most effective thing I could do?
Mm-hmm.
Get some exercise, get some rest, eat some food, and tidy up, and then make a list. And make the list of like, okay, what are the top things that I feel like I have to get done, or what are my important actions? And then say, okay, these are key. And then look at all the piles of stuff around me that I have, and I start sorting them. Go through the getting things done approach. And to file and everything. Either schedule everything, clear the schedule,
Yep.
schedule stuff, get the inbox empty, get the fires put out that are burning, that are demanding my attention, and then move down that list. And literally right before starting this call, I looked up and it said 11:58, and I was clicking boxes 2 minutes before this call is supposed to start, and I'm clicking the done boxes on my to-doist list. And I had 10 items on my to-do list, and I erased 8 of them, and I'm like, dang,
Nice.
I'm so busy doing stuff that I don't even know I'm doing stuff. Like I did 8 of them this morning,
Yep. Yep.
and I thought I wasn't getting anything done, and I only have 2 left, and they're not even, they can roll over. They're not even that important. I should just, now what I need to do is just reschedule them so they're not sitting on my list,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the waves of overwhelm really show us our habits and our patterns. Like you mentioned, I close the computer and I tidy up. Like one of my classic things is, and I take a lot of handwritten notes. Like I don't type into my to-do list automatically. Like on a call, I'm using a pen and I'm doodling, like I'm doing my I'm focused on the call. The need for my attention is there. And anyway, I will inevitably end up with my desk being completely full of notes. Like all this paper everywhere. It looks like a beautiful mind. I'm totally Russell Crowe. I've got things stuck all over. I've got notes everywhere. Mathilde's laying on the papers that I've chucked over my shoulder. Like it totally becomes this comical space of just my thoughts. And so part of my de-overwhelming procedure is collecting those notes and populating them into my system. So putting them into my digital electronic system and scheduling them, basically making sure that I'm not gonna lose them, because that contributes to overwhelm also is like, "Oh my god, I fucking wrote something down and I can't forget this. I gotta email this person after our demo and send them the pictures, and it's a big, important potential connection, and I have to" like, those things that I don't wanna forget, but even stuff like that isn't super high priority, I don't wanna forget that stuff either. You know what I mean? So if I leave my stack of papers too long, I start to get overwhelmed because I know that things could be falling through the cracks here. Theoretically, I should be processing those papers every day.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's like
I'm sh-
that's something I'm looking at for myself to transform is where I'm going with that so that I don't end up in these cycles of overwhelm being like, "Shit, I have so many papers everywhere."
so is that process working for you? Like the writing everything down on paper and then having to sort it and organize it into another system, that extra step, is that?
No. Yeah, well, that's why I'm bringing it up, is it's something I'm looking at.
Yeah.
The one thing that I don't like is I don't like being so only digital. Like, I feel like my
Mm,
brain needs analog things in order to be optimally whether or not I can start to take notes during calls inside of my to-do app, that's totally something I could experiment with, yeah. So yeah, no, it's not working for me. Yes, it's working for me in the sense that I don't totally lose everything, but it's definitely something that I let go too far.
I see. So I've recently started using an app that I found in my research called Todoist,
Mhm.
and I'm attracted to this app because of its simplicity, because it's very, very bare bones. There's really not much to it. And because of that, I can use it efficiently and I don't bog it down with all the details. It has the depth of detail available, but the primary function is really, really simple. So I have a projects list,
Mhm.
and Trust the Journey is one of those projects.
Nice. Go team.
And Flight One is one of those projects. Flying is one of those projects. Personal finances is a project.
Nice.
My van maintenance is a project, right? So I'm dividing up all the key areas in my life that need my attention at different times.
Mhm.
And then I have friends on here. Friends is a project, right?
Cool.
So and physical activity. Anytime there's something that I need to put attention towards, and every time a new thing comes up, you're like, okay, oh yeah, I'm on a call with somebody and I have to deliver the document after the call. Simple as that. Just making a note, deliver the
Yeah.
document to so and so after the call. And if I'm in
Right.
a Trust the Journey call, I click the plus button and I just quickly write down deliver document to whoever, and then it gives me the option for time, date, place,
Mhm.
and I can make any links or connect things if I want to connect to them. And it's really working well for me because it keeps this kind of foreground inbox of like, if
Mhm.
you don't categorize it into a project right away, if you just make a quick note, like
Yep.
deliver document, and I don't say to who or to when or what document, it just sits in the inbox.
Mhm.
But then I quickly scan the inbox and I go, oh, I say deliver document. I say deliver document to Mel tomorrow. The
Mhm.
document is about the video edits, you
Right.
know? And then that put that in the project, trust the journey. And because I click tomorrow, it disappears
Yeah, exactly.
and I don't see it anymore
Yes.
because it's scheduled for tomorrow.
Yes.
And then tomorrow so now I feel a lot less stress
Correct.
because I know that I've done what I need to do, which is taken responsibility for my areas of action. Because I said I would deliver that document, and so I'm going to, but I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to do it later. But as long as I have to keep remembering it and it's spinning around in my mind, it just piles on as a stress item that I'm having to try to remember. And if I do put it into that trusted system, then it does unload my overwhelm, and it helps me to take that piece. It's not on my shoulders, it's not on my head. I can say that is scheduled for tomorrow, and tomorrow that system is going to do two things. It's going to send me an email in the morning with my entire list of things for the day, and it's going to ping me half an hour before the time that I've scheduled to do it, so that it gives me a notification that says, hey, deliver document in 30 minutes. So I'm like, oh, cool, yeah, good. And then I know that that's the time I've planned to get that done in, and it's working pretty well.
That's
I have to
great.
say it's pretty good. I have a lot of other systems that do very similar things that are much more complex. My Google Calendar, my Monday.com app, what's the other ones?
Asana.
Asana and Slack,
Mm-hmm.
all the same kind of function, but there's a lot more complexity in them. And this one is really basic and really simple. And the simple is working.
Great.
Yeah.
I love it. We talked a lot about this last episode when we were talking about the books and getting things done. And it's
Yeah.
amazing how this really is a huge part of what lifts overwhelm for those people who have lots of tasks, are entrepreneurial, have creative projects that are on deadline and timeline and with project partners. That's what this is like. The overwhelm helps people like us who have
Mm-hmm.
those types of overwhelming situations. For someone who doesn't necessarily have a big, massive to-do list, it might look differently. They might be like, I don't need to, they might feel differently about their tasks and be like, writing stuff down really does work for me because they don't have as many things on their list. Not that that's right or wrong or good or bad. It's just life and lifestyles are different. I've just noticed that what you describe, I need it. Otherwise, I will be consistently overwhelmed because I like to do a lot of things. Just like you
Yeah.
described all those projects, it's about we like to do a lot of things. And when we get cool, amazing opportunities that come our way, we want to say yes to them. And we want to figure out how we can actually make those work amidst the other competing priorities.
And when to say no, I can't.
Correct.
I got to be able to know to say that if I already know that my week is full, I have to have that visibility and that awareness to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody call me yesterday, can we talk today? And I'm like, no,
No.
I can't talk today. I
Yeah.
have other things I've promised to be done today.
Yeah.
And having those boundaries and being diligent about them, it's really important.
That is
I,
definitely an overwhelm diffuser, boundaries. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, I want to pivot us a little bit
Yeah.
because this has been very, in the first 20 minutes or so, we've been focused around like workload overwhelm and like the things, the to-do list or, everything I said I was going to do. But let's talk about emotional overwhelm because what I'm experiencing in my life is the more that I have put my attention towards self-awareness, the more that I realize I have a lot of things that I haven't been taking care of for a long time. And they have constantly been seeping up through the floorboards, kind of eating away at my foundation, derailing my processes. Like I'll be doing great on something and all of a sudden I just totally lose my focus or I lose my motivation and I get emotional or I get depressed and I get angry and I get all these emotions. And it could be from anything that's like a trauma that I experienced at some time or some pattern behavior, or maybe maybe I'm grieving, maybe I've lost something, maybe I'm changing, maybe I'm going through a period in life. And I just wanted to kind of give ourselves a minute to talk about all the other forms of overwhelm that exist.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought this up because it's very real, certainly for anyone who is growth minded, healing focused, it's inevitable. I mean, if we even just look at grieving, grieving requires more time and energetic and emotional space than if we are not grieving, period. If we are growing in self-awareness, healing the parts of us and integrating the new things into our world, it requires time and energy. And it takes something to do that. You know what I mean? I was just thinking of something and I was like, my thought left my brain. What was it? If you have something, it'll come back. If it's good, it'll come back. I'm like, what was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So what's been happening for me is I've got these patterns and I'm starting to track them. I'm starting to be able to figure them out where like I literally looked back a couple days ago and I was like, man, I am crushing it this week. Like I had this week scheduled out, which is just hammered full of stuff. And I have a ton of things to do and a lot of people to work with, dozens of different people that are waiting for my time and attention and action items to follow through on. And I crushing it down this list. And then there's the one day I wake up and I get out of bed and I'm just like, ugh, oh my God, I just can't. And I don't want to. And, and I feel like crap, you
Yeah.
know, and I completely lose that that inertia that I've been carrying. And it's not like I completed the task that I needed to do, or like, it's not like something happened that really, I didn't, maybe actually I should be more considerate to myself. I did have something happen. I had a horrible experience recently.
No. Is everything
Yeah, I hit a
okay?
dog.
Oh,
I hit a dog. It was
no.
terrible. It was
Oh, of
horrible.
course it was horrible.
Yeah, and it was a completely unavoidable situation where the dog came running out of the bushes right in front of the car,
Yeah.
like, and I
Oh,
just totally traumatized by that.
of course.
So now that I think about that, I'm like, oh, wait a second, there was something that happened that probably emotionally derailed me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just I think the point of the share is that we're humans, right?
Mhm.
And we are messy. We're just messy. There's
Mhm.
nothing clean and tidy and organized about being human. As much as I might try to like keep my life in well-oiled systems and keep my
Right.
countertops clean and put everything away and everything's got a place, I'm a bag of meat and poo and guts and
Right.
bacteria and stuff. And it's gross being
That is
human.
gross.
It's gross. And
I
the feeling is gross too sometimes. Sometimes it feels
yeah,
amazing. Other times it's like, bleh,
I
you know?
know. Well, and I remembered what I was gonna say is that I think it's really important that when we are in an emotional time, that we lower our expectations on what we are capable of doing. As in, and I don't say this as a cop out to laziness. I say this is more for the like type A person who is go go go, the super engaged person, the person who is never at risk of being lazy. They're more at risk of completely exhausting themselves and then hiding in a sort of emotional hole away from the world because they crashed. And by the way, that is me speaking from experience. Hello. So like I can't describe that very with detail without, but like obviously I've lived that is my point. And one thing I've learned is it was very hard for me to lower my expectations of myself, of like accepting that humanity, of being like, "Girl, you just can't do as much as you want to do right now." And that's okay. Also, this is something that I noticed in myself over the years is that I was always very afraid of letting people down, not being able to follow through, losing integrity or losing people's just respect if I couldn't do a crazy intense job, You know what I mean? That was that real overachiever period of my life where it really deeply exhausted me, and I was consistently overwhelmed during those times in my life. Not that I was never radiantly on fire and in love with my life, that always happened too, but it was always this, like, I'm killing it, oh my god," going way, way, way too intense, and then I would crash and have to recover for a number of whatever days, and it would be I wouldn't be able to really do anything. And that's not great because that's not very predictable. So I can't really keep integrity with that type of approach to my life. So it was like totally a raw, like, resistant process for me to really start to fucking own and believe and integrate an action in my own life the whole self-care thing of like it needs to be consistent so that my performance, quote unquote, is sustainable. Now, is that 100%? Fuck no, because sometimes you have a traumatic experience and you hit a dog and it's so horrible. Sometimes bad things happen that we wouldn't be able to predict. And so, like, life, as much as I'm like maybe perfect at my self care, it still doesn't mean that I'm not going to have times of emotional overwhelm that I still struggle through.
It almost feels like a daily routine sometimes
For me, yeah, now it
where,
is.
you're like, okay. And I constantly joke about this with Julie. We're like, okay, today we're going to get everything done. The whole before noon, the life
Nice.
list, right? Like everything. I'm gonna get my life done now. Like
So awesome.
I'll see you maybe 12:30.
Nice.
It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah. And
Mm.
sometimes you just need a break.
So
But
you know,
I have been successful just to share about this. I'm definitely more successful caring about myself more, letting myself sleep as much as I need. Those things really have made my performance, quote unquote, much more sustainable than what I used to do. The like
mm,
super intensity and then the crashing. That just really doesn't work in my experience.
um, oh gosh, I just lost what I was gonna say too. It's
Yeah.
this
That's
is
the
sign.
brain. That's the
That's the
brain.
sign of overwhelm, right? Like
Exactly.
just too many things on the go at once. Um,
Yeah. Just it'll if it's good, it'll come back. That's what
yeah,
I always say. You and Julie were solving everything before 12:30. That was happening.
yeah.
And then the sustainability of self-care. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, I can remember what I was gonna say.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um, So everybody who listens to this regularly knows that I broke my back a little while ago, and that is a physical limitation that puts a straight up limit on how much you can do of the most basic things, right?
Mhm.
Like how many times can I get up to walk to the bathroom? How many times can I, move around? Like what's my limit of physical energy output in the day? And it's
Mhm.
also mental energy. Like your mental energy output has a very short cap. Like I could get on a call and I could be productive for an hour, but after an hour I would just lose it and I
Yeah.
just couldn't continue putting out effective communication.
Yeah,
I
brain
couldn't
power.
think anymore, and I would have to rest. So I have had a lot of experience recently with having to accept my limitations. And
Mhm.
so, as you were saying, like when you're going through a period where we have a high load on us, whatever that load is, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, or whether it's a tangible thing like a workload or family or anything we have to actually do in our lives, those all pan out equally, right? Like
Mhm.
they all take away some of our ability to deliver on the things we want to deliver in our lives. And that, required rest and lowering our expectations of what we think we can do. I've had, that personal example recently, and I'm trying to get it back up to where I kind of, what's normal or what I'm used to or kind of what I expect it to be. But I'm also starting to think, I'm like, maybe some things are never going to go back to what I'm used to.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's best that they never go back to what I'm used to.
Right.
And last night I watched this documentary and it really gave me some beautiful perspective. It's an excellent documentary. It's called Dirtbag and it's available on Amazon Prime. And it's a story of a mountaineer whose name is Fred Beckley.
Mhm.
And he is renowned for being probably the premier mountaineer of the last century for first ascents.
Okay.
He climbed the most mountains that had never been climbed before, and there will never be on this planet somebody who climbs more first ascents than him because they're mostly all climbed now.
Wow.
So, and he's just this incredible person, and in the documentary he's 84 to 86 years old
Mhm.
for majority of the documentary. They show a lot of him in his younger life and they show him towards the very end of his life where I think he was 96 when he died, maybe 94 or 96, in his mid 90s,
Wow.
and he climbed right up to the end of his life.
Wow.
So in his mid 80s, when he's finishing off one of his many books, he's trying to climb the last four peaks in the book that he's written about first ascents and the routes. And because he's never done these peaks, he wants to do them before he finishes releases the book. The book's written, but he wants to get these last four. But he's 86 and he's not physically able to complete the climbs anymore. And he tries them year after year after year, like 81, 82, 83,
Wow.
84. He's there trying to make these ascents, but he just can't do it anymore. He just
Mhm.
doesn't have the body that's capable of achieving that.
Mhm.
But the mind hasn't accepted that concept that there's a limitation
Mm.
that's different than what it was previously. And
Mhm.
you can see that that doesn't click. Like it's obvious to the people that are with him. Like he's like, no, we're gonna climb, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna climb, and I'm going back up, and you're like, you're older this year than you were last year, and last year you couldn't do it.
Mm.
And eventually there's an acceptance that it's not going to happen anymore, but it's only because it's just physically not happening.
Got it.
But it's a huge lesson to me. Like when I saw this um, highly focused, high achiever, like a
Mhm.
super high achiever, right? Somebody who just powers towards every objective that they set for themselves. And in some ways, failing to acknowledge the limitations is a strength. And in some ways, it's a weakness,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
That the weakness is we're continuing to push ourselves and beat ourselves up for not being able to do something that we just can't do. So maybe at some point, if we accept the fact that we just can't do that anymore and put our focus on something else that we can do that's just as rewarding or just as
Mhm.
valuable in the life that we still have, we could utilize that time more effectively, get more value from our time rather than continuing to repeat the task over and over again. And I'm going to close this statement
Yeah.
with my own personal relationship to it in my swooping career of doing the same thing over and over and over again, and my physical body just taking a beating because of it. And why? Why am I doing that? Why am I continuing to try to prove something to myself that I already proved to myself that I could do numerous times in the past? Why not turn my attention in my life towards something that could be of a greater value than repeating the same thing over and over again that I've already done?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because you can take it both ways. You can totally look at it as the person who really wants to dedicate their life to one singular thing and all of that. And there's tons of value in that for those that choose that. And for those that that's not for, it's, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I see that in my life too, in the sense that I have parallel careers. You know what I mean? Skydiving was not my singular focus of my whole life. I decided to learn how to become a life coach, and I decided to be a writer, and I decided to have other creative avenues and other just places where I put my life energy, and I'm so grateful for that. I luckily can, and I say luckily, but, like, only because I have so many amazing opportunities still through skydiving. I dedicated enough of my life that I still am lucky enough to get these beautiful opportunities to continue skydiving in the ways that I'm called. While it hasn't been my entire life, I'm really grateful that it hasn't, because I've had so much, just it's been so wonderful to me to have my life coaching career and all of the beautiful people I've been able to work with, like, and that's something, if I think about overwhelm and I go to this conversation we're talking about today and diffusing the emotional overwhelm, I definitely go back to the why, you know? So, yeah, dialing in David Allen, the trusted systems, and when I go deep around stuff, it helps diffuse it as well. It helps me to go to connect to why, like, if obviously you still need to get rest and make sure you're not gonna just crash and burn, but when you're handled in that regard, I feel like connecting back to your why always delivers some uptick in energy. You know what I mean? If you have a
Yeah,
heart-centered why, values-driven why. But there was something I wanted to share that's a different sort of track. I shared something earlier today on Instagram, actually on Facebook as well. Xavier Dagba is one of my favorite Instagram accounts to follow. He has such incredible insights. They're just so on point on so many levels. But anyway, one of the things he shared today was this: one of the biggest distinctions I've seen in the most resilient people I have known. Uh, oh, sorry. One of the biggest distinctions I've seen in the most resilient people I know is that they stopped beating themselves up for what makes them human. And so that goes back to the conversation around expectations about what can we do comparatively to what our intense overachieving, high achieving, unconscious selves would have us would demand that we do.
absolutely relate to that. You know, the more that we accept our limitations as who we are and where we currently are in our lives, and we balance the amount of energy and time that we put towards each of the areas of importance, the mm, you know, the more balance we feel, the less that overwhelm owns us and takes control of all of our thoughts and all of our time.
Yeah. Sometimes I even think about it in terms of resilience, in terms of building resilience. When I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, this is challenging. This is hard. I'm feeling overwhelmed, but it's another opportunity for me to practice doing what I think and know works, practicing new things that I think might work to help me diffuse this, and I'm building that resilience muscle in myself to be able to move through emotionally challenging times, to move through just high workload, just whatever might be causing us the overwhelm. It's all a part of building our resilience, our inner resilience, which has us be that much more capable as we go forward.
I think that's whether we're talking about putting our to-do list items into a trusted system that we can rely upon, or whether we have a trusted system inside of ourselves that we can rely upon, that's the same thing,
Mhm.
right? So the list of actions for how to deal with overwhelm in myself, close the input streams, turn off the phone, close the computer, tidy up, so the decluttering, communicating, sharing, making space for all the other things like exercise, rest, eating, and creativity, making those priorities of equal value is this trusted system. That's the trusted system that we're talking about. It's like whether it's your to-do list to say I'm going to get these things done this week, or whether you say these are the things that I'm doing this week that are going to ensure that I'm in a healthy enough state as a whole being to be able to do the things that I've said I want to do this week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. It really it really, really is. And that's the thing about cultivating the system, cultivating our own skills. It's just a worthwhile focus. You know what I mean? It's just a worthwhile thing to try to do. You know what I mean? It sounds silly,
Well,
but
we don't really have a choice. We either do it poorly or we put
mhm,
attention towards it and we do it well.
correct.
There's not really any other option, right?
Yeah.
You do it bad because you don't put any attention and you just stay in that
Yep.
spot where everything's on top of you,
Mhm.
or we put attention towards what's the system failure breakdown and we put attention towards the system and we figure out a way to be better at doing what we got to do.
What I
Yeah.
would add to your list, I echo everything that you said, and you said this earlier, I just wanna highlight it again, is what gets chosen off of the plate, whether it's you say no to something forever or whether something is pushed, like something is this is not happening now. Right
Yeah.
now doesn't include this thing, right? That is with it on my plate, I'm totally overwhelmed. But if I put it over here, schedule it right for later or whatever, say no to it for right now, that helps also. Getting the what you can actually do in a certain space, both time and energetic. What can you actually reasonably manageably do? That helps. When it's too many things, our intuition takes over and triggers and goes, This is, you're heading toward failure. You're heading toward a cliff's edge.
You're talking about the someday maybe list.
Well, someday maybe is great. I love the someday maybe list because
Yeah.
then you always capture ideas. Say,
Yeah.
share about it. I love it.
So literally this has happened just this last week for me is Melanie and I have just started exploring having somebody else take over our editing process for us to help
Yay.
unload some of that overwhelm. And that's a big piece. I mean, understanding there's a book title in my read to read list right now in my Audible that is called Who Not What.
Mm,
And I'm sure that I understand that the point of the book is, can I delegate this? Can I hand off this responsibility to somebody else who
hmm
is more capable or more available? Not what do I need to get done, but who's going to get this done?
Have I
You
told
know,
you what my word is for 2021 yet? I might
no,
have, but
no. Hashtag word Melanie.
my word for 2021 is outsource.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, like I've done a lot of different things where I'm focusing on my emotional healing, my health, my relationships, my self-care, all those things. I've done a lot of of that self-focus, and now it's clear to me that I've done not I mean, you're always working on that, but my point is that I've never really focused with deliberate high intention on trying to outsource. Which
Mm,
I'm excited. I'm super excited about. I rehired my assistant that I used to work with, but 4 years ago. She's doing some of my blog posting for melaniecurtis.com, like basically taking some evergreen posts from my Instagram and my Facebook, things that could be shared anytime and still have value for the recipient. She's
yeah.
doing that because I'm just not getting to it. I'm just not getting to it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I'm excited about the possibilities of what that focus will do for me in terms of overwhelm and also just elevated results and elevated joy.
Yeah. The, um, the example that I just spoke about with offloading the editing responsibilities was the reason why it spurred to my mind is because it was on the someday maybe list for me. It came up about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and I was like, yeah, maybe someday late, someday maybe. And then it came up again a few weeks ago, and I said, you know what? Not right now. but in a few weeks.
Love it.
Because right now I just simply don't have time to initiate another project or process. But I know that in a couple weeks, when I'm done with these key deliverables that are this workload or all the things I got to do in my life, then I can have a meeting and we can talk about how to do it. And so for the last
Mhm.
couple of week or two, we've been going through process and starting to migrate that responsibility set over to somebody else.
Mhm.
And that's a huge thing in, you know, when I look at my total available time in the day and I say what's causing overwhelm is I have more things to be done in one day every day of my life, and it's because of putting too many things in one day.
Mhm.
Right? I've got to be realistic
Correct.
about, and that's the expectations piece we're touching on earlier. Like, what's the realistic expectation for what I can actually get done inside of one day?
Mhm.
And that's all I have to do. I don't have to get past one day. It just has to be one day at a time. And I can relate to this through my Appalachian Trail experience, which is a massive undertaking. It's 6 million steps, right? There are 6 million steps in that process.
Mhm.
And it's 6 million steps when you start it.
Mhm.
And so do you think about all 6 million steps? No. Do you
Right.
think about just the steps you're going to make today is really all that you have to do? And when that gets overwhelming, all you really have to do is think about what is the step that I need to make right now?
Mhm.
And very often, I can say that there were dozens and dozens and dozens of times throughout that experience where emotionally we needed to recoil in and go, wait a second, what's important right now is just taking the next step that's in front of me, and that's going to lead to the one after that, and that's going to lead to the one after that, and not getting too far ahead of myself, not living in the future with all the
Yep.
things that the rest of the 5 million steps I haven't taken yet. Because as soon as I latch onto the idea of those 5 million undone steps, I am overwhelmed again, because that
Mhm.
is a shitload of a thing to do. Like, to try and do 5 million steps is in one thought in my mind is just too much.
Way too
So
much.
I gotta back it down and say, all right, I really want to get to here today, but if that feels like a lot, how about just the next one? How about just this one right now? You know?
I'm totally pulling up something I wanna share with you.
And so while you're doing that, the something else that is a great relative reference, if you're not on a journey on your feet walking somewhere, the next step, you could replace that with take your next breath.
Mhm.
Just consciously shift
Yeah.
mindfulness to like,
Mhm.
one, just take the next breath in, let the next breath out, and all of a sudden we're back to right here,
Yeah.
right now in this moment, and
Mhm.
just present to everything what can be accomplished right now is what has to be accomplished right now is I have to take this breath. If I don't take this breath, then I'm starting to stress because I'm not getting the oxygen I need, my brain, I have to take this breath.
Yeah. I love it.
And that forces the pause, right?
Yeah.
And awareness of now.
Mhm.
And those only ever happen one at a time. I can't take my next breath after the one that I need now. I can only take the one I need now.
Mhm.
It's so great. The breath is just the bomb diggity.
The reason I thought I wanted to share this is I'm sure I've shared it, but this is probably a long time ago. But this is the affirmation series that I came up with in 2011. So 10 years ago that I've been using this affirmation series as it relates to overwhelm. And it needed to be a series because no one of these statements alone worked to help to diffuse it for me. And this is me back then only working with mindset, having not too much access to other skills to manage myself and my emotional states, right? It was mostly cognitive for me at that point. It was mostly what am I thinking and saying to myself? So, what I came up with is this: number one, overwhelm is an illusion. Two, I always have time for what's really important. Three, I am grateful for this period in my life. 4, I am grateful for this moment. So just recognizing overwhelm is an illusion. It's a fear. It's not real. It's not happening. Nothing's happening. Literally nothing is happening. I'm fine. I'm alive. Shit's good, whatever. 2, I always have time for what's really important. For me back then, it was very connected to, I don't have time to get everything done, right? And when I go to that statement, it's like, I always have time for what's really important. If I need to go and go to the hospital, I will be able to go. You know what I mean? If I need to take somebody to where they need to, like, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. If I need to see my family, I can see them. I always have time for what's really important. And then I'm grateful for this period in my life, meaning this period of my life is temporary. Like, it might feel like it's gonna be forever that I'm totally overwhelmed and loaded up with tasks, but really I'm working on projects that won't be around forever. I'm doing things that won't last forever. So recognizing that it's a phase, a period, helped me feel less overwhelmed also. And then as you, of course, pointed to, I am grateful for this moment, really grounding me in the now, like bringing me all the way back to present. But if I just try to go, I am grateful for this moment, I might be able to use it now that I have much more experience with this type of shifting in myself. But back then, there's no way that if I said, oh, I'm grateful, I'm super overwhelmed, and I just said to myself, I'm grateful for this moment, it would not help. You know what
Mm-mm,
I mean?
mm-mm. You got me thinking about something that is quite important to me, and it's been um, it applies into this whole concept of self-awareness and awareness of the present moment, awareness of what really matters, gratitude, that anchoring into self, the breath, the people that we have in our lives, the fact that the sun exists and that there's water on earth, and the joy that is called existence.
Right.
And um many of you know that I love to attend Burning Man, and there is an installation at the burn that maybe people don't realize is incredibly sacred and spiritual. And everything about Burning Man is temporary. It appears and it disappears. Everything is set up in a matter, like the infrastructure is set up over a 6 weeks or 8 week period, and then most of the city is built in a week, and then at the end of the week, the majority of it's gone, and a month or two later, absolutely everything is gone, and it's completely gone. Not a single sign exists.
Mhm.
And the installation that I'm referring to is the temple. And the temple sits at the top center of the whole city. It is the focal point of the city, to the top of how it is arranged. And the beautiful thing about that temple, if you're a spiritual person, if you're a religious person, and you understand the value of sacred spaces, is that sacred spaces help us to anchor ourselves, and they help us to get present in this moment. And what I particularly love about that temple in particular is, first of all, it's never the same temple twice. It is always a new temple when you go, because the last one doesn't exist anymore. We burn it and it's gone. And I love the idea that the word temple and temporary, or
Mhm.
temporal and temporary, all interchange, and that this space, this highly spiritual, highly connected, very present moment space, is so fleeting,
Mhm.
that it is so temporary.
Mhm.
And that I've walked into that temple and I've cried in that temple many, many times. I've left, one of the traditions is to leave something of importance to you in the temple, whether it's a picture of somebody who you've lost, that you want to grieve and let go, or whether it's something that resembles something in your own life. And the only time that I ever put anything in the temple myself, left something there, was I was standing there and I was having this big long think about, what is it that I want to be free of? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to release my attachment to?
Mhm.
And I looked over to somebody next to me who just finished writing something, and I asked to borrow their marker, their Sharpie, and I wrote on the side of the temple, I wrote myself.
Mm,
And I want to be free from myself. I want to be
mm,
free from this idea of who I think I am,
yeah,
right? This
beautiful.
concept of self. And I cried, and tears streaked down my face while I wrote this on the side of the temple. And then at that end of the week, when we all sit around that temple and they light a match to it, 50, 60, 70,000 people sit silently and watch everything about that concept of, what we think is important just go up in smoke.
Mm,
And that honoring of ourselves and what we attach value to, and honoring that it is all temporary and none of it truly exists, that this life is going to start and is going to end, and we have no control of either of those things. We do not choose into it, we do not choose out of it. And in the meantime, we're just here doing whatever we can, and it's all temporary, nothing is permanent. And accepting that and letting that be something that we are comfortable letting go of,
hmm.
not trying to control, there's peace in that. That is letting go of the overwhelm.
I think that's the perfect place to end today. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Thank you, everybody who's listening. We love you so much. Thank you for being here and being with us in our overwhelm. We hope our sharing about ours has helped you.
If you find value in our show, please share it with anybody that you feel would also gain some value from listening to us. And please subscribe and share. It's all about word of mouth. Get us out there, and we would really appreciate your support on Patreon. If you'd love to join the Trust the Journey family, it would really help us, as we would really love to offload the editing task and cover the cost of that. It comes from your donations. It's 100% no profit in this. We're looking at covering our costs, and we love you and thank you very much.
Love you.
Enjoy your day.